Today, we are going through 5 more of the most disturbing and tragic events ever recorded in workplaces. These true stories reveal the serious risks many workers face daily. From unexpected accidents to deadly errors, we will uncover the grim details of each case. Join us as we explore these shocking and often preventable tragedies. It was June 17, 2024, in Latina, a rural area in the south of Rome, Italy. Satnam Singh, a 31-year-old Indian national, was working on a farm without legal papers. He had been living in Italy for several years, working hard to support his family back in Punjab, India. He and his wife both worked at the same farm, often facing harsh conditions and exploitation. On that Monday, Satnam was cutting hay in a melon greenhouse when tragedy struck. While working, his arm got caught in a hay-cutting machine. The machine severed his arm, causing severe injuries to his legs as well. His wife, witnessing the horrifying accident, pleaded with the farm owner, Renzo Lovato, to rush her husband to the hospital. Instead of providing immediate medical help, Renzo's son, Antonello, made a shocking decision. He placed Satnam and his severed arm into a minivan and drove them back to their home. Antonello dumped Satnam on the roadside like a bag of rubbish, as described by the FLAI trade union, and left him to bleed out. Satnam's wife frantically sought help from their neighbors, urging them to call an ambulance. The neighbors responded quickly, and an air ambulance was dispatched. Satnam was flown to a hospital in Rome, but despite the efforts of the medical team, he succumbed to his injuries around midday on Wednesday, June 19, 2024. The news of Satnam's tragic death spread quickly. The Indian embassy in Italy expressed their condolences and assured that they were in contact with local authorities. They were also making efforts to contact Satnam's family and provide consular assistance. The embassy's statement read, "The embassy is aware of the very unfortunate demise of an Indian national in Latina, Italy. We are in contact with local authorities. Efforts are underway to contact the family and provide consular assistance." Italian Labor Minister Marina Calderoni called the incident a true act of barbarity and stated that the authorities were investigating the matter. She expressed hope that those responsible would be punished. The center-left Democratic Party condemned Satnam's treatment, calling it a defeat for civilization. They highlighted the exploitation of workers in the region and emphasized the need to fight against gang-mastering and for dignified and humane living and working conditions. Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni also expressed shock at the tragedy during a cabinet meeting. She said, "These are inhumane acts that do not belong to the Italian people, and I hope that this barbarity will be punished harshly." Meloni's sentiments were echoed by many in her government, who called for swift justice. The farm owner, Renzo Lovato, expressed regret over the accident and claimed that he had warned Satnam not to approach the machinery. Antonello, who left Satnam outside his home, was arrested on Tuesday, July 2, 2024, for charges of second-degree murder. Trade unions in Italy condemned the incident, linking it to the broader issue of caporalato, the illegal gangmaster system of hiring migrant workers. Maria Grazia Gabrielli from Italy's largest trade union, SCIL, described the incident as an event of unprecedented brutality and highlighted the slave-like conditions endured by many farm laborers. She said, "Exploitation in the fields very often results in starvation wages, unsafe and inhumane working rhythms and conditions, psychological and physical violence. The conditions under which Satnam and other migrant workers labored were often dire." According to 2021 data from the National Statistics Office, ISTAT, about 11% of Italian workers were employed illegally, with the percentage rising to more than 23% in agriculture. The Agropontino region where Satnam worked is notorious for the exploitation of workers. As the investigation into Satnam's death continues, it raises serious questions about the treatment of migrant workers in Italy. How could such a horrific act happen? Why did the farm owner choose to abandon Satnam instead of rushing him to a hospital? These questions show the broader issue of worker exploitation and the need for stricter regulations to protect the rights and lives of laborers. It was a bright Monday morning in Bonita, California, near San Diego. Bardomiano Bautista Perez, a 39-year-old father of 4 from Escondido, was working his second tree trimming job of the day. He was a dedicated and experienced tree trimmer with over 13 years of experience, and he loved his work. Bardomiano was known for his safety consciousness and passion for his job, even competing in tree trimming competitions. He had dreams of starting his own tree trimming business one day. Bardomiano had been hired by a friend to work in a 4-person team, trimming palm trees in the front yard of a home on Bonita Verde Drive. The team had been working diligently, carefully trimming the tall palm trees. It was a job that required precision and caution, as the dead palm fronds could be heavy and unpredictable. At around 11:30 a.m., Bardomiano was about 50 feet up an 80-foot-tall palm tree. He was in the midst of his work when disaster struck. The cut palm fronds, weighing hundreds of pounds, suddenly collapsed and pinned him against the tree. His co-workers on the ground watched in horror as he became trapped and suspended among the heavy foliage. The other workers immediately called 911, trying to free their friend while waiting for help to arrive. Within minutes, firefighters from Chula Vista arrived on the scene. They quickly assessed the situation and knew they had to act fast. The team, including a specialized search and rescue unit, began the difficult task of freeing Bardomiano from the dense and heavy fronds. Chula Vista Battalion Chief Tim Merer described the incident as something that is relatively unique to certain types of palm trees, where the falling fronds can trap workers. The firefighters worked tirelessly for about 35 minutes, carefully cutting away the palm fronds to reach Bardomiano. Despite their best efforts, by the time they lowered him to the ground, it was too late. Bardomiano was pronounced dead at the scene. The tragic accident left Bardomiano's family and friends in shock. His sister-in-law, Rosario Martinez, expressed the family's disbelief and grief. "We can't believe it," she told the media. "You can't describe it in words." She described Bardomiano as a hard-working, modest, humble man who was a great family man. He was so safety-conscious. "That's why we don't understand what happened," she added. The California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, or Cal-OSHA, launched an investigation into the accident. They aimed to determine the exact cause of the incident and ensure that all safety protocols were followed. The investigation would also help provide answers to Bardomiano's family, who needed to understand what happened to him. A GoFundMe page was set up by Bardomiano's loved ones to support his wife and children during this difficult time. The community rallied around the family, offering their condolences and support. Bardomiano's 14-year-old daughter expressed her determination to fulfill her father's dream of starting a family tree trimming business. Palm tree trimming is a dangerous job, and incidents like this highlight the unique risks associated with it. The sudden collapse of heavy fronds can be deadly, even for experienced workers like Bardomiano. Firefighters and other first responders often face challenges when dealing with such accidents, as the dense foliage and height of the trees can make rescue operations difficult. The San Diego County Medical Examiner's Office confirmed that Bardomiano had been working at a private residence when the accident occurred. He was hoisted on a palm tree that was about 100 feet tall, trimming the dead fronds when they collapsed on him. Despite the efforts of his co-workers and first responders, Bardomiano did not survive. Rosario Martinez described Bardomiano as a devoted husband and father, with children ranging from 2 to 14 years old. His death was a devastating loss for the family. "Our whole family is heartbroken. It was so unexpected," she said. She emphasized Bardomiano's love for his work and his dedication to his family's well-being. Firefighters at the scene described the accident as a tragic one. The job of trimming palm trees, especially tall ones, requires not only skill and experience, but also a keen awareness of the dangers involved. The heavy fronds can fall without warning, creating a hazardous situation for workers. The accident has prompted discussions about safety measures and regulations for tree trimming work, particularly for palm trees. Ensuring that workers are adequately trained and equipped to handle such risks is crucial. Employers must also prioritize safety and provide the necessary support and resources to their workers. As the investigation by Cal-OSHA continues, Bardomiano's family hopes to find some closure and understanding of what led to his tragic death. They are also committed to raising awareness about the dangers of tree trimming and advocating for better safety measures to prevent similar accidents in the future. It was December 12, 2022, in Buffalo Grove, Illinois. Nicodem Zaremba, a 27-year-old plumber from Elmwood Park, was working on a routine sewer repair job. Zaremba was known for his hard-working nature and deep love for his family. That day, he was accompanied by another employee and his stepfather, working under the banner of Rooter Solutions Incorporated, a plumbing company that had been established just a few months prior. Around 5:30 p.m., the Buffalo Grove Fire Department received a distress call. A trench had collapsed in the front yard of a home on Aspen Drive, trapping someone inside. The initial report stated that the person was buried, unconscious, and not breathing. First responders rushed to the scene, but the situation was dire. When the collapse occurred, Zaremba was about 9 feet below the surface, working on a residential water line. The dirt wall of the trench had caved in suddenly, burying him under nearly 9 feet of soil. His co-workers, who had managed to escape, tried desperately to dig him out with their bare hands, but to no avail. The weight of the dirt was too much and time was running out. The fire department's response was swift. Within minutes, a mutual aid call was issued, summoning help from several nearby fire departments. The scene quickly became a hub of activity, with over 60 rescue personnel from 17 different fire departments converging on the site. Their task was to save Zaremba, but it was a race against the clock. Technical rescue specialists worked tirelessly using shovels and other tools to carefully remove the dirt without causing further collapse. The process was painstakingly slow as they had to ensure their own safety while trying to reach Zaremba. For over an hour they labored, but by the time they reached him it was too late. Zaremba was pulled from the trench at 6:35 p.m., placed on a stretcher and transported to Northwest Community Hospital. He was pronounced dead shortly after arrival. The Cook County Medical Examiner confirmed Zaremba's death around 7:20 p.m. The official cause was crushing injuries due to the trench collapse. The incident shocked and left Zaremba's family and friends in mourning. His fiancée, Nicole Kozadaj, remembered him as her everything, best friend, soulmate, and future husband. Friends described him as a fun-loving and adventurous individual who always had a smile on his face. Nicodem Zaremba's death was not just a tragic accident. It was also a preventable one. The U.S. Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, launched an investigation into the incident. The findings showed something was clearly wrong. Rooter Solutions Incorporated had failed to implement necessary safety measures that could have prevented the collapse. OSHA cited the company for one willful violation and one serious violation, resulting in fines totaling $35,940. A willful violation, according to OSHA, occurs when an employer knowingly disregards legal requirements or acts with indifference to employee safety. In this case, Rooter Solutions had failed to install cave-in protection, a critical safety measure for trench work. The trench, measuring approximately 13 feet long, 9 feet wide, and 8 feet deep, lacked any form of shoring, sloping, or other protective systems. These systems are mandatory for trenches deeper than 5 feet to prevent such collapses. OSHA also found that the employees were not wearing protective helmets, exposing them to head injuries. For this serious violation, the company faced a penalty of $4,688. The lack of cave-in protection resulted in a $31,252 fine. The investigation concluded that Zaremba's death was preventable and that the company's negligence directly contributed to the tragedy. Trench collapses are among the deadliest hazards in the construction industry. According to OSHA, the soil can shift suddenly, burying a person under thousands of pounds of dirt and rocks. Rooter Solutions Incorporated had only been in operation since August 2022 and had no prior history with OSHA. However, this lack of history did not absolve the company of its responsibility to ensure the safety of its workers. The company's failure to follow basic safety protocols resulted in the loss of a young life, leaving a void that can never be filled. In the aftermath of the incident, people gathered around Zaremba's family. Friends and neighbors offered their support, sharing memories of a man who was known for his kindness and generosity. His death shows the importance of workplace safety and the devastating consequences of negligence. It was a cold evening on December 13, 2022, in Blackjack, a quiet neighborhood in St. Louis, Missouri. Herschel Perkins, a 60-year-old pizza delivery driver, had just left the Papa John's on New Halls Ferry in Florissant to deliver a pizza. This wasn't just any delivery for Herschel. It was a cash order to an apartment on Whisper Lake Drive. Herschel knew the risks of cash deliveries. He always talked about it with his employees. He had a strict protocol: call the customer, meet them outside, and never wander around the complex. But on this night, something went terribly wrong. Around 9:30 p.m., Herschel arrived at the apartment complex. He parked his car and, following his routine, called the customer. But instead of meeting someone outside, Herschel was met with a barrage of gunfire. He was shot multiple times before he could complete the delivery. Despite his critical injuries, Herschel managed to call 911. In his last moments, he told the dispatcher he had been shot and didn't think he would survive. When officers arrived, they found Herschel lying in the parking lot, his lifeless body filled with gunshot wounds. Herschel Perkins was pronounced dead at the scene. The news of Herschel's death spread quickly. For those who knew him, the loss was unexpected. Rashonda Johnson, Herschel's daughter-in-law, remembered him as a loving person who looked out for everyone. He had hired her at Papa John's years ago and introduced her to her husband, Cortez Farmer. Cortez, who considered Herschel his stepfather, described him as a dedicated family man and a hard worker. Herschel had started as a delivery driver and worked his way up to general manager. He loved his job and always went the extra mile to help his employees and customers. But who could have done this to Herschel, and why? The answers would come soon enough. The investigation led police to Wye Hallowanger, a 20-year-old man from Florissant. Hallowanger was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. He confessed to ordering the pizza to a vacant apartment and admitted to changing the phone number he used to place the order. Hallowanger's plan was cold and calculated. He waited for Herschel to arrive, knowing full well what he intended to do. The arrest of Hallowanger brought some relief to Herschel's family, but the ordeal was far from over. On February 7, 2023, police announced that a second suspect, Marcus Thomas, had been charged in connection with Herschel's murder. Thomas, 23, faced the same charges as Hallowanger, first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The details of Thomas's involvement were not as clear, but his presence at the scene suggested a planned and coordinated attack. As the months passed, the legal proceedings against Hallowanger and Thomas unfolded. In May 2024, a jury convicted Hallowanger of first-degree murder and armed criminal action. The verdict was a formality, as a first-degree murder conviction carries a mandatory life sentence without parole. Marcus Thomas, on the other hand, pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder. Throughout the trial, Herschel's family and friends sought justice for the man they loved. They remembered him as a great dad, a loving grandfather, and a dedicated employee. Herschel's tragic death left a pain and a void that could never be filled, but the convictions of Hallowanger and Thomas provided a measure of closure. Herschel Perkins' story shows the potential dangers that can be faced by delivery drivers. Despite the precautions he took, Herschel fell victim to a senseless act of violence. His family will always remember him as a kind and caring man who did everything he could to support them. But the questions remain. Why did Hallowanger and Thomas target Herschel? Was it a robbery gone wrong? Or was there a more personal motive? It was August 14, 2023, on a LATAM Airlines flight from Miami to Santiago, Chile. The flight had taken off around 10:11 p.m., carrying 271 passengers on a Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner. At the helm was Captain Ivan Andauer, an experienced pilot with 25 years of experience. He was a 56-year-old veteran of the Chilean Air Force, well respected for his dedication and professionalism. His two co-pilots, a relief captain and a first officer, were also on board. 3 hours into the flight, Captain Andauer began to feel unwell. He left the cockpit and went to the bathroom, where he collapsed. The situation quickly became critical. Around 11 p.m., one of the co-pilots asked over the intercom if there were any doctors on board. This urgent request came just 40 minutes after takeoff, indicating how suddenly the situation had escalated. A registered nurse named Isadora, along with 2 doctors, immediately responded to the call for help. They found Captain Andauer in the bathroom, exhibiting symptoms consistent with cardiac arrest. Despite their best efforts, they faced a significant challenge. The plane did not have the necessary medical supplies to perform an effective resuscitation. Isadora later expressed her frustration on social media, emphasizing the need for better protocols and resources for medical emergencies in flight. As the medical team worked on Captain Andauer, the co-pilots had to make a swift decision. Realizing the severity of the captain's condition, they initiated an emergency landing at Tocumen International Airport in Panama City. The plane diverted from its original course, and the crew prepared for an unscheduled stop. The flight took 30 minutes to reach Panama City. As the plane descended, passengers were informed that they would need to evacuate upon landing. The atmosphere on board was tense and filled with concern. Many passengers were unaware of the exact nature of the emergency, but understood that something serious had occurred. Upon landing, first responders rushed to the aircraft. Medical experts boarded the plane and took over the efforts to save Captain Andar. Despite their immediate intervention, he was pronounced dead shortly after the plane touched down. The tragic news was soon communicated to the passengers, who were deeply shocked by the sudden loss of their pilot. LATAM Airlines released a statement confirming the incident and expressing their deep condolences to Captain Andar's family. They acknowledged his remarkable career and his valuable contributions over the years. The airline emphasized that all necessary safety protocols had been followed during the flight to safeguard his life, but the outcome was unfortunately beyond their control. The passengers were provided accommodations in Panama City hotels while the airline arranged for the continuation of their journey. The flight resumed on Tuesday, and the passengers finally reached Santiago, Chile, but the memory of the incident remained with them. In the aftermath of the tragedy, there was a call for improved medical preparedness on commercial flights. The incident highlighted the critical need for better medical supplies and training for airline crews to handle such emergencies more effectively. Isidora's comments on social media resonated with many, bringing attention to an issue that could potentially save lives in future flights. Captain Ivan Andar was remembered not only for his professional achievements but also for his personal life. He was married to Veronica Andar, who had passed away in 2017, and they had a daughter named Sofia Andar. Tributes poured in from colleagues and friends, recalling their memories and expressing their grief. One of his colleagues, Sky Airline Captain Paula Mandini, shared a heartfelt message on Facebook, reflecting on their time together and hoping that Ivan was reunited with his beloved Veronica.